Welcome to DiceTillDawn, and finally some videos and a new review. And today I'm looking at Beer Empire. This is a Kickstarter I backed last fall, I guess, and it arrived about a month ago, and I've now played 3 or 4 games, and I think I wanted to do a review of this. The rules explanation might be long, but just skip to my final thoughts if you are not as interested in the rules, but I tried to explain most of the rules and how the game works, but there's a lot going on here, so that might be a bit long. But first of all, let's see how to play the game and then come back for my final thoughts. Okay, so here is the game components pretty much set up for a 2-player game, I guess, although only 1 player's components are shown here. And sorry for the possible glare, I'm trying to use my new tripod, and maybe it will pump while I'm talking or anything, but hopefully you got the idea, and I will try to pick up the components to get them closer to the camera. Anyway, here is the main board, and there are areas for victory points track, and the different beer types. Here is the trending beer, and here is the least trending. So currently ale is the most sought after, and the beer type has the information what it needs to be made. So 1 light malt, 1 dark malt, and 1 hops makes an ale, and it could have some extra things according to the market, but that's rare. And then stout and so on. And then down here is the beer fest area. Every second round, here is the round tracker. The top here means the phases of a round, so the resource management and beer fest, and then the market phases and supply and planning phases. And there are 6 rounds, and all these red rounds have a beer fest, and the 6th round actually ends right after the beer fest, so the game is over. So the left corner here is for the beer fest. Here is the current reviewer. There will be 3. They are here under this first reviewer and will be revealed after the first beer fest. And here are some of the taste qualities or qualities of the beer that this reviewer likes. So aroma, there is possible for 4 points and 1 more for each aroma more you have. And he really much values the color and taste of the beer, and also he likes bottled beer. So all these things bring you points if you make a beer of that type. Also, the most trending beer here gives you 5 points for the beer fest, or if you have stout it will give you 3 points. And down here are the awards for the beer fest, so the winner gets to pick first, and another worker 2 points, 3 bottle caps, which are basically money and stock currency, stuff like that. And then there's this passion tile, I will explain later. So a beer fest, then the current beer trends, and down here is the market. This is set up for a 2-player game, so there are 4 market tiles. These actually determine the reviewer things here, but I won't go to that details much more. So what do these market tiles mean? Well, this market actually wants you to make beers that has at least 2 good aroma in it. And this market wants bottled beer, this wants closed fermentation, and this wants 4 malt and hops all together in a beer. So how you work with these is you basically do a blind bidding with the other players, going 1, 2, 4 and 5, and you choose number of bottle caps you want, and everyone closes their fists and reveals at the same time, and 10 people put their chips here, and if someone has more chips there or bottle caps than any other player, they are the market leader, and they can actually gain 1 more point or 2 more points from that market. But all in all, everyone who has at least 1 bottle cap in a market and produces a beer that qualifies for these gets these points every round. For the 1 beer they made that round actually. So that's basically the main board. Then there are the next market tile that might come into play. Wants like barrels or what's some kind of filling types. and you will always see the next one, so these might actually mature the markets and slide down off the table. Anyway, then there are the experience tiles. There's always 6 available, and you actually just get to choose them depending on if you make the most trendiest beer, or I guess that's the actually only point, and at the start of the game you get one of those also. I will explain them once we go to the planning phase. And then there's the market here, or supply, however it's called. And it's bigger the more players there are. This is for 2 players. And these 3 rows here are actually all open, and this is a special market, I guess a VIP market or sort. And if you put a worker here during your planning phase in the market, you actually get to choose from this row also, and I will explain that closer when we get there. But anyway, there are 4 types of resources. So there are hops, there are malts, dark, light and dark, there's fermentation types, so open and closed, and then there's filling types of cans and bottles and barrels and all kinds of things. And these things have differences on them. So for example, this barrel, if you put it in a beer, or if you put your beer in a barrel, you can one victory point when you brew the beer. Or let's say this, if you use the closed fermentation for your beer, it produces 1 bad taste and 1 bottle cap. So the red circles mean it's a bad thing, but you can actually counter it with, for example, this experience tile. This counters 1 bad taste from your beer, so these work nicely. So this is the player board everyone gets. This is the red one here for my color, and everyone gets 1 of these worthless hops and malt of both types at the beginning of the game. Also everyone gets 4 workers and a turn order tile and first player, and also depending on the player order you get 2 to 5 of the bottle caps. And there's a supply of these tokens here. And I have to say, this is the biggest disappointment I think in the game. These are just almost impossible to tell from each other at a glance. So, just an example here. If you look at them quickly, you have no idea which everything is. Especially when they use the red color here at the background, which is also the good color. And these are double-sided, so a good taste or a bad taste. I get the idea, but I would have liked them to be something like maybe an eye, a nose, and a tongue maybe, or something like that, to further differentiate them easily, because you can't tell them apart at a glance, and really hate that mishing up of the beer. But that's still a small con, but you can't really fix it either, because the iconography is all around the table, so you can't just change these. Anyway, enough of that. So your own board, this is your warehouse. You can store up to 3 malts, 3 hops, and 2 of the fermentation types and 2 filling types. And here is where you brew the beer when you get to that point. And this is where you can put to 1 player. And here is the planning phase, where you put your workers. So I will explain that soon. And you can also always buy another worker with 4 bottle caps. And the game comes with these great, I really like it when games do this, this cheat sheet, player aid, which tells you the round phases and final scoring, final rounds, and ties and brewing resolutions. And at the back there's the legend for all the different icons in the game, and pretty workable and pretty nice. There could be some more things in few of these, because some of these aren't self-explanatory until you played it like 3 or 4 times. But all in all, a great aid, and I really like it. You can really just play from this once you know the rules. Okay, so the round actually starts with a brewery phase, which is like you move the resources from the warehouses, so you make the beer, and you can play experience and passion tiles and move shares. I will explain that now, because usually this planning phase is always at the end of the round, but now I will actually, at the start of the game you do this as a preparation round. So how you do the worker placement here is very exciting, I think. For example, there are 3 shifts from 8 to 12 and 12 to 16 and so on. And you can actually only put workers on 1 row and 1 column. So you can put them like this, but you can't put them, for example, like this, or maybe like this, because you only can have 1 on each same row. So also I can't put them like this either. And what this means is, if you put a worker here in the first column, you get this guy works for all these hours, so it would produce 3 of each of these shifts, I guess. So here are the costs you can transfer. So for example, with 3 of malt and 3 of hops, I could transfer both of these, because they are a total of 3, and maybe one of these, or if there are more here. And the second row is the filling and fermentation types. If you put 1 here, you can switch 1 of each. So if they are here on the first spot, you can transfer 1 of each. This is a special spot. If you take this one, you can actually move 1 of your shares on the market if you have some there. So for example, if I was here and I wasn't going to be able to do this round, I would actually change it here, because I could do a closed fermentation, for example. So that's very powerful at some points. But of course you always want to pick the first one, so you have to choose which of these is the most important. And the last one is the playing of the experience and passion tiles. So let's say I have this at the start of the game. This is my pick. So I can actually play up to 5 of these if I have the play. So for example, if I put a worker here, I can now play 1. If I put it here, I could play 3 experience tiles. But you can actually stack, so I could play 2 here and I would play 6 passion tiles. So for example, this passion tile just gives me 1 victory point for the beer. And let's say I also had this one. I could now actually remove 1 bad aroma from the beer, if there was one, and I would add 1 good color to the beer. And this is where the passion tiles come in. So I could actually use them, for example, like this. Sorry for the cut there, someone called me, and of course I'm recording with my phone, so hopefully I can fix this little hiccup here. But I was talking about these experience tiles, so hopefully you can see them. I can actually switch them. So these passion tiles actually double the symbol that they point to. That's the reason why these have the symbols on top or bottom. That's the main point of the passion tiles. So for example, at this stage I would actually get 2 victory points and could remove 2 bad aroma from my beer. So that's very effective at some point, so these are cool to have. But of course you also have to be able to play all of them, because after each beer these are all removed and you have to play them again next round, so these aren't here permanently. So that's the main point. And of course at the beginning of the game you also get to get some of the 1 of each hops, malt and fermentation type and filling type to actually make a proper beer at the first round. So what you do, let's say I would pick like something like this, for example. So each one I pick, I actually have to put them in their spots and at the lowest free spot. So let's say I pick these just as an example. These would be now filled up from the after I picked them from the supply. So after that I have actually picked I want these. Let's say I did something like this and saved my 1 worker for the market, so I have better choices in the market. So let's say I did this. Now I would first the brewer phase, I would work in the brewery, so I could move my resources. So I can move up to 3 of each. So I think I would like to make an ale, which needs 1 of each malt and 1 hops. So these are a total of 3, so I will move them to these spots, and I would take either of these. So let's take the better one, or I would also take the bad one just to make 1 bad beer in a sense out of the way. And then I'll take I have one of each of the blue and grey, so I can take one from here and one from here. So now there's one ready beer to be made or brewed. And also I can play experience style. I could play up to 2, but I also only have the one I said I maybe took. But let's say at this point I may have actually wanted to take this one, for example. So let's say I have this one. So I can play one, it doesn't matter which spot I can play it, but there's actually a maximum of 5 experience tiles you can have. You can have more, but you can play only 5. And after that you could maybe move the shares if you were here. And now you just do the beer. So you check the beer characteristics. So at this point I would check, and I will get 1 and 2 good aroma. So I'll take 2 of these good aroma tokens. Then I will take 1 good color, and this actually, sorry, 1 bad color, but this actually removes the bad color, so nothing there. But also, sorry, there's actually 1 here also, so I would get 1 of the good color. So, and also I would get 1 victory point immediately. Also, every time you brew a beer, you get at least 1 bottle cap, so I would get 1 bottle cap. Now, that's my beer. After that you can check for the beer type. So this is an ale, and that means this is the best beer for the beer fest. Of course this isn't a very good beer yet, but anyway, that also means that I get to pick 1 experience tile if I make the most trendiest beer. And let's say I want more bottle caps in this game, so let's go with that, for example. Or I could also think about this market here, but there aren't any pluses for that, so let's just go with the bottle caps. They give you more flexibility, I guess. Of course, okay, then after that you check for the market points. Let's say we did some bidding at some point in the first round, and I maybe had 2 here, and of course there would be other players here also, so let's say I have 1 here also. So, and other tokens of other colors would be here. So now we check each market. So if anyone is here and has produced a beer which has 2 or more good aroma, they would get 2 points or 3 points if they are the market leader. And the second market, I am now the market leader, and I also did make a bottled beer, so I get 3 points immediately. Next market, I am also the market leader, and I used closed fermentation, so I get 4 points. Of course, I'm the only one here, but I'm just explaining how this works. And if I made a beer which used up 4 or more, or actually 4, you can't use more than 4 of malt and hops together, you would actually get 5 points if you were the market leader, or 3 points if you were just had at least 1 there. So that's the market points check. After that you can actually submit this to the beer fest. So let's say I'm not sure if I can do better next round and I want to send this one. I just put it here in my color spot, and actually I can't look at it again, so I would have to remember what it was. And actually these tokens could be removed just to make sure that you don't count them or anything. But the good thing is that you can actually still change it next round, so if you made a better beer next round, you can actually submit that also, and it doesn't penalize you in any way, because in the first round there isn't any beer fest, so you get to make 2 beers before the first beer fest. And after that would be the beer fest phase, but it isn't now. So in that you would actually take all the beers that have been submitted, check their characteristics on all these scoring ideas, and you would get a total of points from here and from the beer type and from the characteristics, and the one that got the most points would actually first get to pick an award, and then the next one and the next one, and that's pretty much it. And then after that the beer reviewer next one would be revealed, and now we would probably want to make some kind of different beer. And also trend change after every beer fest, so after the beer fest the most trendiest beer goes to the bottom and the next one slide down. And also After that is the market phase. If the markets are full, I guess there's the different amount of shares on each of the market. They might actually fall out and change the market. So for example, in a two-player game, if there's 4 or more shares on one of these top level markets, they actually slide down and push these out of the game and they turn over, and they might actually change the game if there was a, let's see here, if it was here, this one, it would actually add a requirement of dark malt to ale. And after that is the assigning shares. You have perhaps gotten more bottle caps from your beer, and now there's another closed bidding of each of the markets. Of course, this would be now filled in, and there's another closed bidding for once for each, and things could change here. And after that is the supply phase. In turn order, everyone gets to pick supplies from the market, but if you didn't put your worker here, you can only pick from these 3, and they don't refill once you get one from them. But if you have your VIP market, I guess, if let's say I take this one, it will actually be instantly refilled from the supply. So that's a big thing, but it also takes one of your workers from here. So that's a nice choice there. And after that, just the planning phase again, so everyone takes their workers and does the planning again here after they have actually gotten a lot of resources, so you would have the resources for the next beer. So now you do the next planning, and this goes on to the next round. And you did do this for 6 rounds, and at the end you count up your scores after the next beer fest. You also get 1 point for each 2 unused bottle caps you have, and 1 point for every market leader. If you are the market leader, you get 1 more point. Each market leader gets 1 point for each market they lead. And that's it. Hopefully you got some idea from this. This was a long-winded explanation, but I think that was most of it. Okay, so that was Beer Empire by Board and Dice. And first of all, I really like the colorful look, and it's just like, it's very warm and happy, I guess. And there's a lot going on, so it's not a hard game, I guess, medium at most, medium light maybe, once you understand it, but there are many things, interlocking mechanisms and everything, so there are things to look for. So this isn't a first game to play after Monopoly, but this isn't hard either. Let's go with the positives first. So the colors are there, and also there's kind of multiple ways to victory. You can try to abuse the markets as much as you can, always make the beers that the market wants, and maybe focus a little less on the beer fest. But the beer fest does give you 2 points. Actually, that was something I forgot to mention. The winner of the beer fest also gets 2 points. Anyway, you can get points from there, and the awards are very good at some points. So that's something to keep in mind. You can't really ignore anything in this game. I guess that's a negative also, but still you can try to get points from different things. Also, you can try to abuse these experience tiles that give you victory points, and maybe use the passion tile to double each of them, and always just make beers that give you 6, 7, 8 victory points each round. That's a lot, because at least in 2-player games, scores have been in from the 40 to 60 points, about somewhere around there, and so that's a lot of points possibly. Other good things, I think team is nicely integrated. The beer types and the reviewer and the trend changes and the markets, I think they are also all kind of nicely thematic. And also, from very little I understand of beer making, the negative and positive things are something that could actually affect things. So for example, a open fermentation could actually add some bad aroma to the beer, or a bad taste because it's open, stuff like that. Of course, I'm no expert, so I don't really know, but they feel thematic to me. And well, it's challenging, and it rewards you when you play it more. The first game was actually a bit, well, what I'm doing, even though I understood how the game works, still you can really see that the more you play, you can look ahead more by looking at the next market and what's the next thing that's coming. Also, when the trends change, do you have the supplies already to make a good beer? Because it's better to keep your warehouse empty because it's cheaper to move them, but then you would also have to take all the tiles next round from the market, and the market actually goes out pretty quickly from the good tiles. So if you can also already pick some of the tiles early in an earlier round, you have less to pick up next round. So if that makes sense, you can actually look ahead a bit more, and you can actually make even the low trendy beers, because they can actually, you can move shares with them. I didn't actually mention that also, but there are a lot of these small things, but most of them are actually nicely laid out on the board, and you can really remember them from those things. And also the player aid is excellent. The player board is cool, and my favorite part of the game is definitely the worker placement. It's very simple and just a 3x3 grid, but it's immensely satisfying and also immensely, like, it's really induces rage in a good way, because you want to do everything but you just can't put them in a configuration you want. And you also always want more workers, but workers are very hard to get in this game, and still you can do pretty much with just the 4, but if you can get 5 or maybe 6, you can start making the cool combos, I guess. And it's always such a puzzle on what you want to move and how much and how many workers you need in each spot. So that's the absolute best part of the game. It's just so satisfying. Okay, so negatives. Well, my biggest negative, as I already mentioned and showed you in the rules explanation, are these tokens. Yeah, they look cool, I guess. Green for a good color, and the color yellow is the background of a color token, and red on the other side. But then there's a problem that the taste has actually the green color to identify it also. Of course, there's the image that is different. There's the guy that has his eye here, and this one there's only the nose and mouth. But still, these are just way too close, and these are so small that you can actually, well, you can't tell them apart. But once you have them from each side and each color and each stack, it's really annoying. And especially counting the beer's characteristics just takes way longer because of this. If it was just an eyeball, a nose and a tongue, for example, they would be just very easy to count, and they would all make sense. So that's something I really can't understand how no one actually pointed out. Maybe I'm the only one, but it's the iconography is all around the game, and it's the only big negative in the game, I think. It's just annoying. Of course, you get past it, it's not a deal breaker for me, but it is very annoying. And what else? Well, not much else, I guess. I began to really like the game. Oh, one more thing. The rulebook is not good. The first game was like 3.5 hours when I was playing the game while I was reading the rulebook. Of course, yeah, don't do that, I know, but it's just atrocious, I guess. Maybe that's a harsh word, sorry, but I don't know. They wanted to do a good rulebook, and it's very long, and wanted to explain everything, but then it just doesn't connect to it, the other spots. So once you start reading the book and doing the setup, there are points that skip you to page 10, and then you go back, and then you forget where you are and what's happening now and why is this connected to this. It's just not good. I don't know, I can't explain it better, but I've read like 300 rulebooks, so I don't know, I just don't like it. But once you do get past it and learn the game, you do find the things you want there mostly pretty easily, so it's not the worst rulebook, no, don't get me wrong, but still, it was not good. And one more negative. I think the game is a bit too long. Our two-player games, the first one was long, but the second and third game was also 2 hours, 2.5 maybe. Of course, we are playing relaxed with my girlfriend and just chilling out, but we do play the game at all times. We are not talking about the weather. So for this pretty light, medium light game, I think that's a bit too long, so I'm not sure how they should have done it. Maybe one round less and make a beer fest in the both on the last and the next last. Maybe I'll actually try that and just take one round off and have a beer fest on the 4th and 5th round. Because while it's not like boring to play the game, the time goes by pretty nicely. I think it's just a too long game for what it is. That's the only problem. And it didn't disappear even yesterday when we played our 3rd or 4th game. It was still 2 hours, 10 minutes or something like that. But we enjoyed the game, so it's not a problem. But it feels like I'm playing a hour to 60 to 70 minute game in a way, but it takes over 2 hours, which is too long, and that's 2 players. So that's something I would like to see in a 4-player game. How long would it actually take? So that's one negative, I think. But all in all, I really like the colors, really like the worker placement, really like the theme, and really like the different paths and ideas you can try. There aren't many, but some things you can actually focus on. So all in all, it's a cool game, and proud to be a Kickstarter backer of the Beer Empire by Board and Dice. Thanks, and see you next time. Bye.